My full name is James E. Dean, James Edward Dean. I was born November the 11th, 1950. I was born here in New Albany, Mississippi. I was born at home by a midwife. She brought me into this world. I can't think of her name right now, but I've never been in the hospital a day in my whole life. Thank the Lord for that. My mother's name was Verlene. Her maiden name was Verlene Pulliam. She was married 4 times, and each husband passed away, and she was the mother of 10 children. Had 1 miscarriage. I was number 3 on the totem pole. Man, and my oldest sister was killed in 1961. She was shot, and I'm not gonna mention her name, the lady that shot her, because I don't know, but anyway, she served some time in prison. Out of respect for the family, I don't want to mention her name. My sister's name was Wyvern Stark.
She was the oldest?
She was the next to the oldest. My oldest brother was named Joe Louis Edwards. Her name was Wyvern Stark. Me, and then my brother James Dean, then my brother Jerry, and my brother Earl Dean, and then it was Ruby, who's married now as Godwin. My sister Joyce Marie White now, and then there was Richard Smith. Then there was, let's get them in order. There was Joyce. Let me see. I just mentioned Joyce. And then there was Anna Jean Smith, and then there was Lee Anthony Smith.
So that was all the kids?
That's all the kids, 10 of us. 6 boys and 4 girls. My oldest brother, that was in 61, and I think my brother was born in 41 or 42. I'm not sure.
So at least 20 years probably between
the
oldest and youngest?
Yeah. I knew very little about my grandparents. My grandfather was Pink Pulliam, and my grandmother was Annie Pulliam. She was originally a Annie Dye. That was my mom's mother and father. They lived here in New Albany. Let me see. I can't remember when my grandfather passed. I was in Vietnam in 71. My dad's parents were basically from around Louisville, and my dad. Well, I didn't get to know my dad's people because he went to prison when I was about 4 years old, and I can remember that so vividly because I drank my first Coke. The police officer that was in charge of the jailhouse, he gave me my first Coke. And even though my dad was going to prison, that was one of the, I guess you could say, most memorable times of my youngest life.
Yeah. So you were 4.
Yeah.
Did your dad stay in prison?
He went to prison. When he went to prison, my mother remarried, and it was said that they never really was married because apparently the preacher that married them said that he never turned in a state license, and the state didn't recognize them as being married. So when he got out of prison, I never seen him. The last time I saw him, and the first time after he went to prison, was when I went to his funeral.
Wow.
And that was the last time I seen him.
How old were you then?
Ooh, I believe I was in my 40s. I'm not sure. I was in my 40s then.
So he moved on.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you know what your mom did for a living?
She mostly did housework. But she also worked at the Urban B. Swaby shirt factory as a maid there, and But then she also did a lot of work for in-home work.
Did you grow up anywhere close to the Bia Ford School neighborhood?
I lived on Oak Street, which is not far from Belfort School. We walked to school for a while, and then we moved to the Ingomar area when we left. I was in school when we stayed down. We stayed in a place we called Dum, and we walked to school from there. And then we moved to Oak Street, and which was a much shorter walk. And then we moved again to Ingomar, and then we rode the bus from Ingomar to BF4 school. And from Ingomar, we moved closer to town, but we were still riding the same bus. And riding that bus, it was something to experience, because that bus traveled just about all over the county, the south part of the county.
What year did you graduate from BF Ford?
I didn't graduate from
You
BF Ford.
Okay.
Because we went in 70, in 69, we moved to, went to WP Daniel, and they closed down BF Ford School.
Okay. What year did you graduate from high school then?
I didn't.
You
I
didn't?
dropped out I dropped out of school in 69.
What grade were you in then?
I was in the 9th grade. I was
Okay.
behind because when we was young, we moved around so much sharecropping that I never had a chance to. It wasn't that I failed, but I never had a chance to complete a grade because we moved around so much.
So, growing up, you had to work.
Yes. Cotton. We chop cotton. We pull corn. We pick cotton. We pull cotton. And I remember back in 1959 when we moved back to New Albany from Louisville, when we pulled cotton in December.
Wow.
And pulling cotton in December was an experience, I can say that, because the cold, your hands would get so cold that your nails would, just above your nails, the skin would crack and peel. When I quit school, when I dropped out of school, I went into the military.
Okay.
And because of the fact that we was having such a hard time, I decided I wanted to help my mother, and I was about to be kicked out of school anyway because of my age. And I realized that, and I said, well, the Army is the best thing for me to do. So I volunteered for the Army. I went in November. I turned 19. So when I signed up for the Army, I went to Fort Benning, Georgia for my basic training. And then for my AIT, I went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. And from there, I was shipped to Fort Riley, Kansas. And from there, in the 70s, we were shipped to Germany for 6 weeks on a reforger. It was a practice run for the military to leave the United States and deploy to Germany for activities, war games. In 71, now dumb me, I volunteered to go. And it's sad to say, but I felt like my death would be better for my parents, if she would be better off. And I thought that the world would be better off without me. I had low self-esteem because of the abuse I endured during as a child. And I thought I would be better off dead. That was my way of committing suicide. And it did happen.
Wow. How long were you there?
I was there from January of 71 to December of 71.
Full year.
Yeah. I can't remember exactly. It was probably, I come home from Fort Riley. I come home before I deployed. I took a week's vacation. And I deployed not long after the first of the year. And in December, I come back just before Christmas. And I spent 2 weeks at home and then went shipped to Fort Hood, Texas.
When you came back from Vietnam, did you have a different feeling about yourself? Were you glad you survived?
Yeah, I believe that my mother was a strong woman, and if it had not been for her, I don't know where I would be in actuality. She was a very strong woman to the point of where she influenced a lot of things, a lot of my decisions, especially after I left. And I looked at her and I could say I believe that if she can do what she did with 10 kids, and not to talk about the men that she married, but they were more or less not a help to her. And I saw that she was still fighting for her children no matter what. And that made me look at life a little bit different. My military experience made me a man.
I know she was glad that you made it home.
Yeah, I'm glad I did. If I don't talk about it, eventually it'll get to me.
Yeah.
So I have to talk about it every now and then, and I don't mind talking to people about it, except I have to choose my time.
I understand that totally.
I was awarded a Quilt of Valor a couple of weeks ago, and I got to, I started having flashbacks of what I was experienced over there, and I broke down right in front of a big crowd and started crying. But it's still, like I say, it's a lot of soldiers that have been released from the military. They were not counseled or debriefed, as you want to say, if you want to say it in such a way. They were not debriefed, and it got to a point of where, I've testified to our church that the Vietnam era veterans, they just put a bunch of potential killers out there on the street, and not talking to them about what they may go through. And I found out that it took me from 71 to 2012 to realize that I was suffering from PTSD. The statistics shows that most Vietnam veterans at least been married at least twice, at least, because of the issues that they have, and it takes an acknowledgement, and it was hard for me to even acknowledge that I had a problem with PTSD. I look at VA even today, rather than give, I know that there are some people that are out there will try to use the government, but there are some people that are suffering that really needs the help, and VA looks for every opportunity to try to take that help away from them. A lot of homeless veterans, they're out there because they don't want to deal with the problem of trying to get the help they need, and then they are doing everything they can to discourage you from it. I thank God that people are beginning to recognize our veterans as they come back home. As I told the group that give the Quilts of Valor group, I said, when I come back, I was landed in Seattle, Washington. We met protesters out there calling us baby killers. I hadn't killed no babies. It made me feel like, hey, we went for our country, and then we come back to a country that don't want us because we did what we had to do. But we were not baby killers. I want that to be plain. We did not kill babies. There was some collateral damage at times, but the North Vietnamese, they would send babies out to kill us. They would put satchel charges on them and send them out amongst soldiers and blow them up. I wouldn't wish what I go through every day on my worst enemy. And I always say, when people begin to criticize us about what we did, I always think that you walk a mile in my shoes one day, and you'll understand.
Yeah. And we don't want to do that.
No. No, you don't. My mother was our church. She was our spiritual leader. We had to go to church when she went. and which, it built a foundation for me. But even though, a lot of people, like myself, you grow up to a certain point and you want to do your own thing and you get out there and do it. But when it comes down to it, when I got back from Vietnam, my mother, she was my heart. And I started working for the phone company. And she asked me one day, I come in and she said, James, won't you go to church with me? We're having a revival this week. I said, no. She broke down and started crying. And when she started crying, she knew that was, it just, yeah, I'll go. And when I went that first night, I'll never forget it. I had a date. And when I went that first night, I sit at the back of the church and the preacher preached, and I'll never forget the message. Search yourself. That message stuck with me the next 2-3 days. And that second day I come in, I would always go by my mother's house. She said, will you go to church with me? Same thing happened. And when that happened that night, I said, man, I got a date tonight again. She want me to go to church. And I said, well, yeah, I'll go. Went, and I sit at the back of the church. And I don't even know what the preacher preached that night. But when I sit at the back of that church, I remember that message he preached the night before, search yourself. And I sit back there and looked at myself and looked at my life. And I knew that something had to change. And when he called for the altar call, and people will probably think this is funny, but when he called for the altar call, I got up to go out the door, and next thing I know, I was laying up under the bench on the first Sunday in the front row, and that changed my life. That was the start of the change of my life. And irregardless of what these young people think, there's more to life than a party. There's more to it. Getting high, there's more to it than that. I stopped drinking when I was in Vietnam, where most people started drinking. I never tasted drugs. I never took drugs. Stayed away from heroin, and it was very plentiful in Vietnam. You could go to the guard shack, and you look outside the guard shack, and you see little valves of heroin valves that people unused and threw out the window. And but I never tasted it. I never tried it. And because when I got drunk one night, me and a friend of mine from Memphis, when I got drunk, and we fell out in a ditch on the way where we supposed to be sleeping that night. I looked at him and I said, Gus, man, I can't make it either. I can't either. So we went to sleep. I said we went to sleep, but I think we actually passed out. We had drank so much. And the next day they were getting ready to report us missing in action because anytime there was an attack, we had to report. Well, that night we would have had an attack and we didn't report that morning. And they was getting ready to report us, and they threatened to court-martial us when we finally walked up. And that's why I told him, because I said, man, I'm not drinking anymore. If I die, I want to know I'm dying. What good is that? But I want to know. I don't. When you get to a point in your life where you don't know what you're doing, it's time to change it. And I feel that was a change of my life. That started changing my life, and I started realizing that it's more to life than getting high, than getting drunk. I never tried marijuana, but I did get a contact one time in a club. And people were laughing at me, and I wondered what they laughing at. They were laughing at me because I was high and sitting up there giggling and going. But anyway, life has its changes, and then sometimes you have to get to a point where you realize that life is not a party. It's not always easy. But you don't have to get drunk or get high to try to hide it, because when you try to do that, it's still there when you come down off of that high or that drunk. We have the veterans group called Veterans of Union County, Concerned Veterans of Union County. and we try to be an influence on some of our younger people, and of course it's an outlet for us to talk to each other. When I come back from Vietnam, I think it was about June or July, about July of 72, that I started working at Futorian Manufacturing in the shipping department, and that's where I remained. I worked there for almost, I believe it was 5 years, and then I saw an opportunity to get with the telephone company, AT&T at the time, and I worked with AT&T. Then it turned Bell South when they split it up. I worked for them for a total of 26 years.
What'd you do there?
I was a lineman. I did lineman work. I did install repair. I did cable splicing. When fiber started, I went to fiber school, but I never had the chance to put the skill to fiber splicing school. But I never had the chance to to actually do it in the field because I retired shortly thereafter. Technology has been one of my things ever since I was young. I was always, when I started out with my first radio, that I thought it was some men in the radio. Curiosity killed the cat. But I jumped in there and I wanted to find those people in that radio. People can laugh about this all you want to, but I thought there's got to be somebody in there. And I tore up that first radio. And I've been interested in technology ever since. And that was back in the 50s. I was a little boy, yeah. And I got punished for it too.
You did.
I was I guess you could say, school artist. I did a lot of artwork. I drew. When holidays came around, I did a lot of school artwork because being Ford, we didn't have the funds to just purchase stuff, so we made our own stuff. Christmas, we drew. Me and a few other people the teachers would get us together, and we do our own drawings, and the turkeys and everything, and which I got a picture of one. When I was pretty good at art, and I got a picture that I drew while I was in the military with one of my classmates, and at that picture, I still got a picture of that picture on my phone, but I can't find the picture anymore. But art, as far as BF4 school was concerned, the encouragement was I was one of those kids that was really headed for trouble, and personally, I think that the Army really saved me, because if it hadn't have been for me learning responsibility, I would have probably ended up in prison or dead. I was one of those kids that had a real high temper. I was short-tempered, and as I mentioned earlier, the abuse that I experienced as a child. And I'm not going to name any names, but out of respect for my brothers and sisters, the abuse that I experienced as a child, as far as there were times when I got whippings every day, just because I believed that my stepfather didn't like me. And it looked like he would just pick on me, and I was tired of it. And I got to the point where my temper was real high. I would fight at the drop of a hat, and not believe that, like I said, if I hadn't went into the military, I'd probably be dead today. Thank God. I got plenty of discipline, but I needed it. I'm not, and I look back, and every lick that I got at school is because I needed it. And if kids today had some of the same discipline, I don't think we would have the problems that we had. One thing we could look forward to when we went to school was prayer in school in the morning. Receiving the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. This was something that gave us some kind of foundation to move forward rather than look back. And I think too often that we in today's society now, we're looking too far back and looking at things that happened to us. I remember back in the 60s when my stepfather passed. I was sent down to tell my brother and tell my brother that he had passed. I walked into the cafe where he was working. I walked through the front door. I was only 11 years old. And when I walked through the front door, people looked at me, grabbed me up, and said the N-word, "Get out of here." And they grabbed me up and threw me out on the street and said, "Go to the back door." But I don't hold that against people today, because these people, the people today, didn't do that to me. Those people are probably dead and gone. I can't do nothing for them. So we can't, if we could continue to look backwards, and be at BF4, I believe that Coach Kennedy, Professor Hall, what we called him, Miss Hill, and Mr. Gibson, those people, they were people to look up to, and I admired them. Those, and admiring the people that were there, were, I guess you could say, that were figures for us to look up to, made me think the people that abuse me, those are the people that I don't want to be like. Those people that hurt me, I don't want to be like them. I want to be like people that have some kind of standing in the community. And I looked to them, even though I was hard-headed and misguided at times. When Mr. Hall, I remember one time I got in a fight. Mr. Hall called us, and he told me him and the guy I got in a fight with, we both got a good tanning, and he made us walk down the hall holding hands. and it was just something to see, something for us to, walk down through the hall. And I said, I don't want to do this no more. To myself, I'm not going to be in this situation no more. That started changing my attitude towards what I did at school. And if it made me respect the authority that he had over me, because he held me responsible. When I did something wrong and I knew I was wrong, I didn't mind being punished for it. But when I didn't do something wrong, it really put an attitude in my mind, because I didn't do anything for you to be beating on me. And children look at child abuse, they don't know what child abuse is today. Real child abuse. If they had the same laws back then, most of our mothers and fathers would be in jail. So but like I said, BF Ford, Coach Kennedy, he was an influence on me because when he called us, we always had boxing gloves at the school, and if you wanted to fight, you fought in front of everybody, and he would give us the gloves, and we'd get out there and we box. BF Ford School was my foundation for as school was concerned, because like I said, I never spent enough time anywhere else to get to know anybody. Even to the teachers, we didn't get to know them well. I couldn't even think of some of the schools. Say, when we was living in Louisville, I couldn't even think of the school name that we went to. But I know we get on the bus, and me and my sister, my oldest sister, it was a couple of kids on there that didn't like us. We'd fight just about every day on the bus. But when you look back at it, we learned a lot. And when it came down to BF Ford School, if we got in a tussle on the bus, they would correct us at Ford School. They would let us know, hey, this is not going to be tolerated. They definitely believed in responsibility, and taking responsibility for what you do, and they definitely believe in standard of obedience. Yeah. And if you didn't obey, you suffered the consequences for it. Which, that's what needs to happen today. It really needs to happen. Courts need to get out of schools, and now when it comes down to some abuse, I believe there should be some punishment for it. But to spank a child, I think it gives them some kind of responsibility to say, okay, if I do this, there's going to be some consequences. If there's no consequences for what you do, then you're not going to learn anything. I admire the teachers today. I really do. I admire police officers and I admire teachers because they had to put up with the worst of the worst.
Do you still live close to or with your siblings that are still alive?
Yes, all of my siblings are, except one, is here in New Albany. My brother next to me, he's in Huntsville. He worked for TVA for years, 40-some years, I think he said, and he retired last year in September from TVA, and he's still in Huntsville because he married a wife over there. She don't want to come to Mississippi. I'm gonna talk about one of my classmates that passed away. Was Paulette Norwood. I'm sorry, Paulette Norwood, and then there was Billy King, Pinky Pulliam, my cousin. Then me and my brother was in the same grade, and then there was the Fitzpatricks. I remember all the Fitzpatricks. Then we got the Cannons down in Pleasant Grove. I think it's Pleasant Grove area. And then we got a few people in Red Hill area that was at Bedford. I remember a lot of them, and so a lot of them have passed away too. Well, I never attended out of the county schools because when we first moved back up here from 58, 59, we didn't go to school until about the 62. So we missed a lot of time. We may have started in 61. I'm not sure. The fall of 61 because we were staying in Dunn, and then we moved to Oak Street. It's down south central. You know where, let me see, Reeve Street comes into. If you kept straight across, that's the, and when you went down that little hill, that's what Dunn area would be. And the Butlers, I believe, own most of that property down there. The Birds lived in one. My uncle Noverta lived in one, and his mother-in-law lived in one. Then Edwards lived in, not Edwards, Foster's lived in a house, and the Dykes, and then it was 1, 2, 3, Miss Lou, her sister, us, the Miss Daisy D. It was about 10, 15 houses down off in there. It was quite a few houses, and with the house we lived in was about 3 rooms, I believe it was, and it was 10 of us. The kitchen dining room and a bedroom right there together, and then the living room plus bedroom. Mother and dad lived. The stepdad lived in. They slept in that room, and I think if I remember right, there was an upstairs that had something of a room upstairs.
It's a lot of kids in one house.
Yeah. You'd have to sleep. You'd have to know how we slept too. The houses down off in there, we had a lot of. It was tight knit. Everybody. Matter of fact, I got a picture of 3 of the boys. Me, my brother Jerry, and Pinky. When we looking like Jeff Rowe the Bodine with a rope tied around our waist because we didn't have a belt. When you get to Reeve Street in Central, there's a white house there. That house was there all the time. And it was a white family lived in there. And when you passed that house, there was a little road that broke straight off and went down off in there. And then if you went on down there was the Foster's house was over on the left. It was you may have seen the house before. I think they done tore it down now because the city done somebody took over that property down there. I think it's torn down now. A green looking house that was off in there. And then of course the Dykes house, which was last time I seen it was blue. I don't know if it's down now. It's been a while since I just looked down off in there. pay close attention to what's going on. But I remember many trips we took to Mr. King's store right there on Camp Street. There was a double cola plant. Then there was a milk place there, and then the Mr. King's store.
Who was Mr. Kane?
That was the owner of the store. I didn't know him personally, but he was the owner of the store, and he was just Mr. Kane's store.
Was he black or white?
He was white, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. One we went to the most when we wanted groceries was Mr. Spencer's store. It was the Mr. Spencer owned the store right there next to the shirt factory. That store right by where the shirt factory is, and that which is now the New Birth Community Church. You know where? Let me see. Do you know where the shirt factory was?
The one right.
Irwin B. Swaby.
Right here.
No.
Okay.
It's on. You go down Central Street, and you know where the daycare center is? Before you get to the daycare center, there's a road break off to the left, street break off to the left. At the top of the hill is a store. It's still, let me see, I think it's called Nichols now.
Yeah.
That was Mr. Spencer's store.
Oh, and New Birth was a factory.
New Birth was a shirt factory. That's why I had my first theft at, and my mother whooped me from Dome all the way back to the store and made me apologize to it.
First theft.
Stole some candy. When I got home, I was eating it. Where you get that candy from? My brother said, he stole it. That's what my mother moved to when we got a permanent residence. That's what we moved to. It was in the Goose Hollow, but then the subdivision over there was called, when we first moved over there, called Boone Subdivision. Because the Boones own that land, and they started developing it and putting in low-income housing. I'm trying to think of that name. As you go down Central and go past, go under the underpass, there's a neighborhood right down off in there. We call it Knott's Landing now. I don't know. We called something else at one time. I can't think of what it used to be called, but we started calling it Knott's Landing. I think because there's so much cheating and going. But most of our neighborhoods that the black people lived in, we had a name for them. But, let me see. I'm trying to think of what the Hill. We called over there BFO school. We called that the Hill. That cafe. Let me see. When you get down there and go past the Compress, and you turn, and then go take that right. It used to be a cafe called Bud Turner's Cafe. That's where my sister got killed.
Did you hang out there?
No, I was I was 11 years old.
Did you hang out there when you were older? Was it still there?
No, I didn't. When she got killed in the cafe, I didn't hang around places like that. I would fight. Most of the time, I would fight was because somebody else started it. And I believed in ending whatever started. But now if you wanted to fight just because you wanted to fight, I'd take you on.
Yeah.
I don't care how big you were. I got whooped quite a few times because I fight somebody. When we was at Ford, I remember I was in about the 6th grade. A 12th grader kind of slapped me. I attacked him. He whooped me good. For recreation, we had now dugout. They had the Beasleys on. Let me see where's the dugout. I'm from here, right over here. The apartments. You know where when you cross the railroad track, you take your immediate left, and it's the last house. It's apartments now. That last place was called the dugout. That was a hangout place for. Then under there was a pool hall. That's what I like. I already like to do when I was running 16, 17 years old, and I was on my way there when Martin Luther King got killed. I was at the bus station where BNA Bank Mortgages is now. I was at the bus station. I'll never forget it.
What were you doing there?
That was a place for us to hang out sometime too. But honestly, I was telling my brother. I've told him, we talked about it. I believe that I saw the guy that killed Martin Luther King get off the bus and go to the bathroom. When we got the word, it wasn't long. The bus came in from Memphis and parked, and a few people. And that man looked awful strange. And I still believe that was him, because when they did capture him, it just looked like the man I saw get off the bus. I'll never forget that.
What if it was? Because where did they catch him?
They finally caught him in Tennessee, back in Tennessee, I think it was. But he let me see, I think he was older when they finally captured him. I'm not sure, but they did. I remember seeing him on TV.
Oh, interesting.
And there was another experience I did. House blew up on, you know where the water tank is, up from the school, from middle school.
Yeah.
Well, it's a big water tank up
Yeah.
there. At the top of that hill, you go up through there, between the road that turns left after going through the school. It was a house blew up there from gas. I wanted to see, and that was the first time I saw a dead body. They finally dug him out. The house blew up from gas, and I think the guy was working on the gas, and we heard this boom, and when we went up there, they were digging. They had finally got the backhoes and stuff to come and dig the stuff out, and I wanted to see what was going on, and that was the first body I saw.
How old were you?
I was, let me see, we were still living on, it was back in about 63, 62, I was about 3 years old. And I remember where I was when President Kennedy got killed.
Where were you then?
We were still on Oak Street up there.
So you weren't in school when you found out about Dr. King?
Yeah. I was in school.
It was just after then you were at the bus station.
Yeah, I was at the bus station. Yeah, and matter of fact, when I inducted in the army, I left here on the bus here. I caught the bus when I went into the military.
So the place that you're talking about, where the dugout place, would be between the bus station and the train station.
Yeah.
Or
Bus station and
and like game time.
Well, yeah,
No.
game time.
So there's a pool hall right next to.
That used to be a pool hall. That was the white pool
Yeah, I
hall.
was about to say that must have been the white one.
And the dugout is east of that pool hall.
Not
It's an
only
alley.
yards away.
It's an alley go right between them. And the dugout is where the dugout was. That was the dance hall. Well, I never did dance either, so it cut me out a lot of things. But then down under there was the pool. Was where we went. We did the pool. We would play pool.
That building's still there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Does it say the dock side or something on it? There's something.
I think it does. I think it does.
Okay.
They talked about trying to get a cultural center, multicultural center. That would be nice for the community as a whole, if we could. Because eventually, if buildings that are not used, they tend to deteriorate real fast. And if it get to a certain point to where it's unrepairable, they're going to tear it down. And that is something that I'd like the city need to look at. It's a historic site. They need to try, if we as a city, not just a few people here and there, but we as a city could really open up our mind and see what we could do to help that community, it's just the community as a whole. It'd be nice to do something. Even if they had to move some of the city offices in it. The city owns it. Why not? It could be something to preserve a part of history. And I think that the school like that, it was big influence on the black community as a whole. We have got people that have succeeded in life. They graduated from there. Several of the Bill Ford graduates could go to Vietnam and get killed. Put a little bit of history of that on there. I remember when we first got a band at Bill Ford, I played the trumpet. That was something, it's a lot of things that I can remember that happened there. And they say I didn't get to come. The last year they gave out awards. They was always giving out awards at the end of the year. I had a lot of people tell me, they called my name, and I look at it, I say, they called my name so many times for different awards, like a mathematics award, science award. I wasn't a dumb person. I don't consider myself to have been a dumb person, and I believe that they awarded me so many different awards. They called my name so many times. They said, "Why weren't you there? You should have been there." And I missed something great, but because we were poor, and I couldn't make it. We lived out in the country. We lived way back, and we just didn't have the transportation to get to town. And I wasn't gonna walk.
You're the first person who's ever mentioned a band.
Yeah, we had a band for about two maybe 3 years. We marched in the last year. I know we marched in the Christmas parade, and let me see, I think it was 2 years we had that band, and all the instruments when we left school they went to WP Daniel, and I went on and played band over there.
You played the trumpet. You said?
Trumpet, yeah. No, during that last 2 years they started getting a football team, and I joined it for a little while. But when I got belly whops, I thought it was time for me to quit. And all my kids are doing well. They are both married. Two of them are married. My oldest daughter just went through a divorce. The kids, my youngest girl, she's a RN. My oldest daughter, she works at Bancorp South. And my son got his own business, more or less. He drives a truck, a bread truck, and he's doing pretty well. And they all doing good, and I thank God for that.
You have grandchildren?
Yep. My son adopted 4 because him and his wife couldn't have any. They adopted 4, and that was her biological grandkid. And my baby girl, she has Danielle. She has 3. Boy that's 11 years old, and 2 grand twins, a set of twins, and they just turned 2. It used to be cab company over here. Mr. Gibson owned a barber shop right over there across on this side of the railroad track. It's stores, places like that, and there used to be a barber shop, not a beauty shop, right there in the same building Mr. Gibbs barber shop was in. And let me see, Wade Ivy cab company, they was over there. I also remember there was an ice plant right down here too, right there, right across from the cotton plant. It was an ice station right across the road from there. Go right over the train track, and then there's a line of stores. The stores used to be there. Then when you go past there was a building directly behind there. Was the ice plant.
Okay. Would that be on the right side of the road if we were coming?
That'd be on the left side.
So if we were coming down Cleveland, and you cross the railroad tracks, the left side would be the ice house.
Mm-hmm.
Like, would it be behind where that there's a church or something right there?
Yeah, it's a church. Yeah.
Okay,
it's
behind that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the cotton gin was on the other side.
On the other side, yeah.
Okay.